You're watching the Run Fruit YouTube channel. I'm Finlay and we are kicking off 2025 with the brand new Hoka Bondi 9 running shoes. We've been testing out this pair of Bondi which Hoka sent us for the review. I've run just under 100 kilometers in this pair, so we're going to start by covering the tech, but we'll then go on to cover how they feel to run in and what they're best suited to. Hope you enjoy. The big change is that the midsole now features a supercritical EVA foam. This means it should feel lighter, softer and bouncier under your feet. The stack height has also increased by 2mm, so the men's sits at 43 to 38mm and the women's sits at 42 to 37mm, so that means there's more foam under your feet. There's a slight change to the active foot frame. If you don't know what Hoka's active foot frame technology is, this simply means that the sides, the walls of the cushioning rise up and cradle your feet, which offers more support. And the latest Bondi features more of a rear foot focused active foot frame. So if you compare the back of the shoe to the previous model, hopefully you can see in the Bondi 9 that the back of the shoe, the cushioning is just rising up slightly more. So that offers a little bit more control and a little bit more support in this section of the shoe. Importantly, the midsole base is still very broad. So even though the cushioning is softer, the Bondi should continue to be one of the most stable max cushion models on the market. The changes to the upper include a new structured knit material and a new 3D molded heel counter. The upper is designed to offer a more accommodating fit, and the new heel counter should make it easier to slip the shoes on and off, alongside reducing some of the friction at the back of the ankle and at your Achilles tendon. On to the test runs then. Because the Bondi are designed to feel very comfortable for everyday runs, we tested them out at a range of slow to steady speeds, and some of those runs will now appear on the screen. We didn't test them out at faster paces because that's not what the Bondi are designed for. Now we know some of these runs will translate into very different effort levels for you because everybody's fitness is obviously very different. So rather than focusing specifically on the paces of the runs, we're going to center the feedback more around how the Bondi feels at different efforts and how that should then translate into performance for you. At easier efforts, the cushioning feels lighter, softer, and just generally a lot more forgiving underfoot. And while everyone's different, it's likely a lot more runners will find the new Bondi cushioning just feels more comfortable at those slower paces. And importantly, as we mentioned earlier, even though the midsole is softer, it still feels very stable, which is really important at those slower speeds. The Bondi are definitely one of the most supportive and stable max cushioned running shoes out there. So if you're looking for a really plush underfoot feel, but you really want to feel as if your feet and ankles are supported and you can feel really stable for those slower paced days, that's where the Bondi are going to be one of the best options for you. And I'd also say on those recovery days, when you've maybe done a hard session the day before, or even if your legs are just feeling sore and tired, that's when the cushioning and the support in the Bondi is going to give you a lot of help and make those miles hopefully feel that little bit easier, especially in comparison to some of the other models that sit in this category. Now, the biggest difference between the cushioning in the Bondi 9 and the previous version is how it feels when you start running steady or you pick up the pace, because the midsole now feels very energetic and very responsive. And at the same time, it feels incredibly smooth and fluid as you transition through the gait cycle. So when you're running steady, it just makes it so easy to find a really good rhythm and forget about your feet, which is ultimately what you're looking to happen on that type of run. I know I said I wouldn't talk about speed too much, more about effort, but just to emphasize how well the cushioning performs, one of the runs we did was 13-kilometer run averaging 4:20 minute per kilometer pace. I think 5k of that run was averaging 4:16 minute per kilometer pace. The cushioning felt absolutely brilliant on that run, and you could have just never done that type of steady effort in the previous Bondi because the midsole just lacked the responsiveness, the lightness that you would need to feel comfortable at that sort of effort level. The cushioning also felt awesome on a long, steady run. So that was a 20-kilometer run averaging 4:35 minutes per kilometer pace. But the key was that that was a nice, relaxed pace and that you could hold a conversation, but you're still thinking about holding a pretty specific pace. And what was most impressive about the midsole is it felt really soft, plush, and energetic, but very fluid and smooth underfoot at the same time. So as a lot of you will know, Hoka are famous for their meta rocker technology. So that means the bottom of the midsole, or the midsole, is curved from heel to toe. And what that does is helps roll your foot forward as you transition. So as you transition from heel to toe, you should get a really nice smooth rocking effect. What the danger is of making a midsole softer is that it can lead to bottoming out, where the midsole compresses too much, particularly in the forefoot, and you lose some of that rocker effect. And the most impressive thing is that that hasn't been diminished at all in the Bondi. It still delivers that really propulsive sensation, that really smooth rocker geometry under your feet. And it should work particularly well for heel strikers. And building on that, if you suffer from tightness in your calf muscles after those long runs, or any run for that matter, or you maybe have tight ankle joints, that rocker geometry should work really well for you, because as you land, it transitions you forward and it helps take some of the stress off that area. So as I said, if you potentially get some tightness in your lower leg area, particularly after those long, slow or steady runs, then the geometry and the cushioning in the Bondi should be a really good option for your biomechanics. So hats off to Hoka for an amazing job with this new midsole foam. It's not too soft, it's not too firm, it's just right. And it offers amazing versatility for a wide range of paces and distances, unlike the Bondi 8 cushioning, which ultimately felt best on those slower run days. However, we should note that even though the Bondi 9 cushioning feels very stable, it is softer and it is plusher than the cushioning in the Bondi 8. And there will be some runners who won't like the softer sensation. So if you do prefer that more structured, more responsive underfoot ride, then you may need to look at another model, even another brand, because this will feel much plusher with the new midsole foam. With regards to the fit, there's really not too many differences. I'd say the new material does offer a slightly softer, slightly more comfortable fit. Yes, the new heel construction's nice because it makes it easier to slip the shoes on and off. You should still undo your shoelaces. And if you've been a previous wearer of the Bondi and you like the idea of the softer sensation in the midsole, the more versatile compound, you'll be able to transition into exactly the same size. One thing I would note is I was slightly worried on the first run from the tongue because I was getting a little bit of unwanted lace pressure. The tongue's pretty thin. I sorted that out by just not tying the midfoot quite as much, which I normally do. So that's just something to note. If you experience a little bit of lace pressure, just leave that area a little bit looser and that should go away. One really important thing to note on the sizing and the fit, especially if you're new to Hoka running shoes, is to ideally go by your US running shoe size. So why that's important is Hoka converts the US to UK size a little bit differently from what's considered the norm. So for example, normally in men's shoes, brands will convert the US to UK size by a full UK size, whereas Hoka only do it by half a size. So I take an 11.5 US in the Bondi, which is an 11 UK. So if I went by my UK size at 10.5, that would be an 11 US, and those would definitely be too small. So that's just something to watch out for. And one thing that's worth mentioning with sizing is usually, and this isn't always the case, but usually the width of the shoe will actually change slightly more than the length of the shoe with the half size. So that's quite often when people don't get the right size, why the front of the shoe can just feel a touch too constricted. In summary then, the Bondi 9 have become true out and out everyday mileage running shoes. You can use them for your recovery days, your slow miles, your long slow runs, your long steady runs, and those steady efforts that are actually getting quite close to a tempo effort. This model should feel really good for those longer progression runs where you're building up to a really good steady run, and you just couldn't do that type of effort in the previous edition. I know these are a slightly heavier weight option, which might put some people off running those steadier efforts in them, but it actually just doesn't feel that heavy or bulky under your feet when you're doing that type of intensity. And a lot of that weight is coming from the high outsole coverage on the bottom of the midsole, which obviously helps improve the durability of the shoes. And I think what will be interesting to see is how the Bondi 9 wears over time. In theory, this new supercritical EVA foam should be more durable than the previous compound. And then finally, just circling back to the points we made earlier about the Bondi offering a very supportive and a very stable feel. If you're the type of runner who just naturally prefers that more structured underfoot feel, but you also want a really soft and forgiving step in feel, then the Bondi are going to be one of the best options that you can choose. And that brings me to the end of this review. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you have any questions about any of the points raised in this episode or want to know anything else about the Bondi 9 running shoes, then please comment on the episode and we will get back to you as soon as we can. See you soon.